Hello there, everybody. My name's Golden Arcadia, and today we will actually finally be starting, or perhaps not finally is the right word. I had been cautious about streaming uh, light visual novels as Witch of the Holy Night, Fate Stay Night, but since considering the event is so very close, I figured we have a week. I'm definitely not finishing this game in a week, but we could at least, stream some of it, enjoy it, have some fun, and whatnot. So that is what we will be doing for approximately an hour. Anyway, folks, I hope that you enjoy. Let us start. It was a winter's day 8 years ago. That sullen morning when she understood the value of life for the first time. Yeah, it's so beautiful. I haven't fully finished it, so I also figured, might as well go through it. Also, just have my first playthrough around on the internet. Why not? It also makes me, I am very aware that I have to, once I start something, I have to finish it. Unlike if I started on my own, I usually just play it before I go to bed. So this is also a nice change of pace. Anyways, her home was nested on the side of a mountain. Around it was nothing but inhospitable wilderness. She had no neighbors or childhood friends to speak of. Things like traveling to school or playing outside were more trouble than they ought to be. Oh boy. Indeed, it was pure water and bright stars. It was a place rich with memories, both frustrating and halcyon. I've never heard of that word before. That was only during summer, though. Winters in those mountains were extremely rigid each morning, more severe than the last. Her father would drive her to the train station after waiting 10 minutes for the engine to warm up and the iced over windows to clear. Am I downloading anything? I don't think I'm downloading anything. She was kind of slow a bit. Mind starting up the car for me? Her father would savor his morning coffee, leaving her to venture outside and rev the engine. Out the front door she would go, traversing the garden with icy breath until she reached the old sedan. As always, she inserted the key, then started the ignition. The engine rumbled to life. Just as she proudly finished that humble task she had done so many times before. A shrill scream pierced the air. She knew, even though it wasn't human, that feeble sound was a cry of agony. A few moments passed. Her father came out and opened the hood of the car. Creaking fan belts. A monstrous-looking engine. And something that did not belong. There was a cat, a mother by the looks of it, and her 2 kittens. 3 cats had been huddling for warmth in the engine's compartment. The mother cat was missing its head. One of the kittens had been mangled beyond recognition by the engine belts and surely died instantly. The other kitten, its face half covered in blood, panted faintly. It desperately clung to its mother, or rather the chunk of meat that had been its mother, with the last bits of life it could muster. Poor things. Her father lamented their plight. Their previous night had been especially cold. After he had returned home yesterday, the cats must have snuck under the hood, drawn by the warmth of the engine. They had slept next to the engine and awoken to a storm of spinning belts. Cars in the 80s were not sealed particularly well, so this was not unheard of. It's okay. It wasn't your fault. Her father's voice seemed distant. She could only make out a small tuft of the kitten's gray fur. The rest of it was caked in the blood of its own mother and brother. Can I change some settings? No, I can't. I suppose I can't. No? Okay. I can see its skull. The fragile life of a speckled kitten. Trembling and possibly blind, it continued to nuzzle against its dead mother's chest. Wait! She took the kitten into her arms and ran deep into the mountains to her grandfather's house. Was it because she was overcome with regret? Or was it the shock of grief? Years later, she still wasn't sure. Fighting back the welling tears, she burst into her grandfather's workshop. Her grandfather was a magician who could do anything. She had never seen magic. She knew that magic was a fantasy straight out of fairy tales. But so was her grandfather. She had to find him. He was the only one who could help. I suppose you want me to alter this kitten's fate. The cave-dwelling magician said indifferently. This kitten needs our help, she pleaded. Whether it was a simple task or a Herculean labor, her grandfather would not say. He simply granted the girl's childish wish like a machine. Oh no, the girl said. Before she knew it, however, she was holding a tiny corpse in her hands. Its fur was cold. The warmth of life had left its body, and the tears she had fought so hard to hold back poured from her eyes. Regret spread through her chest like an endless gray sky. We were too late. Some things cannot be undone. Her mind struggled to come to grips with what had just occurred. The last 10 minutes were a total blank. Who she met, what she had known, it was all as if it never happened. The only thing she was sure of was that life, once extinguished, can never return. Is somebody there? That day, it was her mistake that gave birth to me. Indeed, whatever occurred that day It was a day of nostalgia and longing. This is the fairy tale of 8 years ago, the day they first met, that no magic can ever bring back. Arrogant, greedy, and able only to destroy, it must be a wolf. I don't have regrets. There's no holding back. There's no looking back. If my pride has left you behind, my sincere condolences. But at any rate, I suppose it's my fate to die at the hands of the Little Red Riding Hood. Can I save? And alright, give me a second, guys. Voice settings. Audio settings. I'm gonna lower voice as much as I can. I don't want to. I want it to be completely gone. That should do it. It was quite a morning. From her bed, she could see the sky was an ashen watercolor gray. The thermometer displayed 43 degrees Fahrenheit, a rather unforgiving temperature for November. Her stomach woke her up with a growl, pathetically reminding her that she had completely missed breakfast. But lazy mornings like today were for her a blessing. It was already well past 8 in the morning. On an ordinary weekday, tardiness would be unavoidable, but today classes were canceled in commemoration of the school's anniversary. Be second. Whoop, 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 whoop. Ah, man. I love the rainy atmosphere. The visuals are so nice. Yeah, text is displayed all over like the screen and whatnot, but that's totally okay. This is a vibe. I love reading visual novels. Gratefully, she had every intention of taking it easy for the first time in ages. Outside the window was a gloomy gray, and it reminded her more of evening than morning. It wasn't a pleasant morning by any stretch of the imagination. Sorry. But having been up all night just 3 hours ago, she couldn't care less about the weather outside. All she cared about was more sleep. As long as she could spend her morning in bed, what was happening outside was of no concern to her. I completely agree. I love doing that. Today was a rainy day, and I had a great time napping. She shut the curtains, then closed her eyes and tried to let sleep reclaim her. Like a nice, uneventful dream for 2 hours. Thank you. Blissful slumber found her soon enough. Her consciousness faded. However, her simple request would be mercilessly refused. A faint but shrill sound lingered in her ears. It was the unmistakable ring of a telephone. Much to her chagrin, her eyes popped open out of habit. Oh, come on. Why today out of all days? The telephone was situated in the foyer of the first floor. Answering meant walking down a 30-foot corridor and going down a flight of stairs. In her sleep-deprived state, that distance seemed somewhere between incredibly far and astronomically far. The phone's incessant ringing continued. She knew the caller would eventually give up if she ignored it, but she could just choose to fight the urge. Why doesn't Alice answer it? She thought her housemate would get it, but she soon had to abandon all hope. The realization struck that her housemate did not have the day off from school and was likely in class at her prestigious little hilltop academy. The caller proved incredibly persistent. That persistence made the volume of the ringing seem even louder. Ugh. I'm trying to sleep here. She was left with no choice but to get up and throw a top on and leave the room. God, it's cold. She rubbed her hands together to warm her numb fingers. The mansion's heating system was inadequate, to say the least, which meant that the winter was very worst of uninvited guests. Never more so than a dreary morning as this when one didn't need to use a thermometer to know how cold it was. The mansion sat in the mountains and was surrounded by dense forests. Winter had always arrived here first before moving out to nearby towns. Beautiful, by the way. This sounds absolutely beautiful. The robotic ring of the telephone reverberated throughout the long hallway. The mansion's furnishing has been so perfectly maintained that it had made the place feel unlived. It seemed lonelier than it did splendid. Coupled with the dreary morning, it could have passed for a haunted house. Well, it is a haunted house, I suppose. It's too large for just the two of us. Well, it is... She counted more than 30 rings since it first began. The caller either had a lot of free time on their hands or had a good understanding of the house's circumstances. She had a strong hunch that it was a ladder. The window above looked out onto a gloomy sky. She hastened to catch the unrelenting ring in the act as soon as possible, though she had a feeling that her happy morning might come to a close the moment she caught it. It was here that a series of incidents began. Apologies for the lack of romance to this tale, for whether it be objectively true or merely supposition, it is always from gloomy and unassuming beginnings that extraordinary events are set into motion. Pam 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 pam. I hope there's nothing claimed. Hope there's nothing claimed. La 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 la. La 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 la. Pay no mind. La 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 la. La 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 la. You know what? I'm kind of getting tired, so I'm just gonna. Since this is specifically just a music thing, I would rather take the music off just in this instance, and we can enjoy the beautiful visuals as they happen by. The beautiful 80s. Although Alko should be around. How old was Alko at the start of the journey? Let me see. I'm gonna have to Google that. Alko is 17. Oh, yeah, she was born in 1972. So this is happening. I don't know if the earlier scene was when she was around 5 plus, or when it was. It was either already the 80s or not, because she was born in 72. La 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 la. Ba la la la. You can enjoy the music on my behalf through me. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La la la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Hey, okay, we're back. Sorry. Let me bring back the audio. The rain had subsided somewhat by the time she reached the school gate. Sunlight seemed to be playing peekaboo behind the clouds in the distance. It looked like it might be cleared up by early afternoon. Not that it has anything to do with me, though. The weather reflected her luck. On top of being forced out the house at such an early hour, she had to suffer through a winter rain. Ugh, it has to be cold as hell. Ooh. That it was my phone running out of battery. I am getting a bad feeling about this. The sinking feeling she had only grew as she passed through the entrance and headed inside. She didn't encounter any other students along the way, nor did she see anyone taking part in club activities either. The reception desk had the, res- the reception desk to the faculty room simply read "faculty closed." The school had given all of its students the day off, except those explicitly summoned like her. A fact that irked her more and more as the minutes passed. She opened the door to the faculty room and headed towards the desk she had visited a number of times before. The man at the desk wore a plain short shirt and a suit, where nonetheless neatly pressed. Slim-framed glasses adorned his face, giving off an amicable yet cunning air. The mild-mannered image this mid-twenties man presented clashed with the cigarette he smoked. He didn't appear to have noticed her yet. Mr. Yamashiro? She closed the door with a bang. Pop! Showing no response to the sudden sound, Mr. Yamashiro lifted his head. Hey there, good morning, Ms. Aozaki. I guess this means you got the call. Yes, they called me at home about an hour ago, out of the blue. Having graduated from this high school himself, Mr. Yamashiro was not much older than the rest of the students. For that reason, the students preferred him over the other teachers. He always had something interesting to talk about and kept conversations casual. In fact, he seemed more like an older student than a teacher. But she unfortunately didn't share her fellow students' fondness for him. She was of the opinion that teachers should come across as more austere, like an iron fist that could inspire both love and hate in equal measure, not a buddy to joke and pal around with. He was the exact opposite of how she felt as teachers should be. It was only natural that her manner towards him would be forced and unfriendly. Not that she ever been wired to make friendly small talk. You're in a foul mood today. You must be imagining it. I'm like this every day. The matter of fact, I answer perfectly matched the displeasure displaced on her face. Her bad mood from having to get up early and the tiredness from staying up late must have collectively made her look positively adversarial. If you say so. Just go easy on our guest, okay? To be honest, we're not completely sure how to deal with him yet. About that, do you want to tell me what the hell's going on? Because I have no clue. As Mr. Yamashiro met her piercing eyes, he finally understood the reason behind her tone, and he slowly put out his cigarette. Let's start at the beginning. What did they tell you over the phone? Just that I'd be introduced to a transfer student. They were a little hazy on the rest, though. One of Mr. Yamashiro's eyebrows stood up, impressed with the brevity of her answer. He could see that she was angry, not because she was being called to school on her day off, but because she hadn't been told why she was here. Mr. Yamashiro chuckled sympathetically. If this was all a joke to you, perhaps I should go home. Wait. I didn't mean to laugh. This is not a practical joke. We could really use your help. Though there really is a transfer student. Yes, but he has, how should I put it? Difficult circumstances. His name is Sojiro, and he's a bit, well, peculiar. So we thought someone around the same age would be best suited to show him around the ropes. She threw him in an unamused look. It was negligent of them to be pushing teacher's duties on her. But she did wonder how exactly this transfer student was peculiar. Maybe he meant that the student had behavioral problems or was difficult somehow. Give me a second. But peculiar? She didn't have the slightest idea what that meant. You don't hear a teacher call someone that every day. She had her doubts, but swept them aside for now. This wasn't the time to get distracted by more concerns. The fact remained that this conversation was all the peculiar she could handle, and she needed more information. She was already beginning to fantasize about saying no and curling up in her warm bed at home. Yeah, sister, I see it. I fantasize about sleeping all the time. I have a question. Yeah? Yes? He's a second year student like you. He's well behaved and a good listener. He's not the most energetic individual, but that just means he'll be easier to get along with, right? He's not in the same homeroom class as you, but I'm sure you'll get along just. I'll be the judge of that when I actually meet him. And none of that answered my question. Why me? Though her tone was still stern, it was clear that she was willing to cooperate. She had decided to put her feelings of dissatisfaction aside and focus on the task at hand, forcing herself to act empathetic in spite of her self-absorbed nature was something she was used to. Paradoxically, this force of will was also the reason teachers put so much faith in her. To a point, at times that strength shattered expectations, and on those occasions, they were left with no choice but to treat it like a natural disaster and weather it until it passed. That was how Mr. Yamashiro had come to deal with her as over the past year. I'll ask you one more time then, Mr. Yamashiro. Why does it have to be me? Pressured by a question without a clear yes or no answer, he answered, well, about that, you're probably thinking it's because you're iron-fisted ruler of a student council and are willing to strike down both teachers and students for the good of the school, but you'd be wrong. I can't imagine any other reason you'd call me. Her eyes did not hide her disbelief as she glared at him. Strength far beyond that of an ordinary 17-year-old girl, coupled with the youthful beauty of one. Mr. Yamashiro let slip a genuine smile, admiring her miraculous balance of qualities. I mean, I'd like to handle this myself. It was just about pure obligation. But who gets this job has nothing to do with whether they're a teacher or on the student council. I just felt that you were the only one who would entertain this kind of request without needing to weigh all sides. That's why I insisted it be you. In other words, he knew she wouldn't say no. Mr. Yamashiro. Oh dear, would you stop glaring at me like that already? At least put on a smile for your new schoolmate. Look, if you're agreeing to help, we should go see him. We already kept him waiting for long enough as it is. And because you braved the rain to get here, I'd be happy to give you a ride home. Mr. Yamashiro stood up gracefully. I'm good, thanks, she replied before turning and walking out the faculty room. Give me a second, guys. I'll be right back. Hello there, my lovelies. I have returned. Anyways, let us continue. Oh, let me go grab a little sip of something. Mm. Oof. He had been waiting for about an hour. While he did, the rain showered lightened into a drizzle. His mind wandered as he listened to the sound of the raindrops. The room was filled with neatly arranged rectangular tables. He was the only one there. Quite some time had passed since he had been brought to his room and asked to wait. Even the best behaved student might have grown dissatisfied or anxious with the situation by now, but the boy stuck to his spot like a scarecrow. He was chilled to the bone. It was the end of November, and the low temperature in the morning had marked the start of winter. Winter. The room was not much warmer. The heater hadn't been turned on either. He'd missed the teacher telling him to turn it on, or he'd never seen one in his life. He breathed lightly on his freezing fingers as he aimlessly surveyed his surroundings. This dreary place was apparently a meeting room. The other students might have considered it a wonderful place to meet, but to him, it was a drab and overly spacious. It was a lifeless place that reminded him of an arid cave. Stuck in this cold room with absolutely nothing to do, his mind turned to what they wanted to discuss. Unable to come up with a solid answer, he returned his attention to the sound of the rain. The rain hardly resembled the rain in the mountains, though he could still recognize it, barely. Its smell and sound were harsher, but at the end of the day, the rain was still rain. So even this world, alien as it was, could have something in common with the mountains. That trivial detail perked him up a little. He liked how the town looked soaked in rain. Me too, buddy. Me too. I get that. I love the rain, guys. I think it's one of the best. Like the atmosphere and just the demiurge of how everything looks. Today was one of those rainy days, and I could just look out the window and enjoy the beautiful scenery. He liked how the town looked soaked in rain. Naturally, he preferred sunny weather, but he liked the rain in its own way. The fog from the rain had soaked up the scent of the soil and reminded him of home. It was at times like these that he was able to numb the anxiety the city gave him. But then he let out a discouraged sigh. How pathetic. He'd already been here 2 weeks and the thoughts of his hometown made him sad. Perhaps feeling that he was being unfair to his new life, he composed himself and continued to wait patiently. As if having a passion for distraction, his attention returned to the sound of the rain once more. Waiting like this didn't seem to be particularly hard for him. He quietly endured the numbing cold and the hour alone with calm, deep breaths. As the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. A strong point of his or not, he was astonishingly patient. it was certainly helping him out in this moment. She, on the other hand, was livid. The profile of the transfer student had been explained to her on her way to the meeting room. She was told he had lived his whole life up in the mountains without any electricity. That meant more than half of civilized society would have been an utter mystery to him. What a miserable level of isolation. How is this even possible in post-war Japan? He's like Robinson Crusoe. She had every right to be angry. His village had apparently remained isolated in the mountains for many years. Contact with villages in the foothills of the mountains only occurred once a month or so, which was unfathomable in modern Japan. Although expressways and Japan Rail, the old national railways now, span the country like arteries, it wasn't entirely impossible for mountain villages like this to exist. But she couldn't imagine how someone born to such circumstances would think or live. When you say no electricity, you mean in general, right? Like he must have had access to a public phone. Apparently not. He mentioned how shocked he was by the phones when he started living here. I kid you not. He said, wow, telephones are useful. Couldn't really deny it that though, could I? She shot a sidelong glare. She saw the sidelong glare his way as he laughed. It seemed that the naivete of the country boy had cheered up Mr. Yamashiro a bit. They probably didn't have police officers either. My family home is up in the mountains, so it's not inconceivable they wouldn't have electricity. But he doesn't even know what school is? Nope. He heard of them, but this was apparently his first time visiting one. Maybe that's why he's nervous. He wasn't very talkative. Sorry about that. He's almost, what would you call it? Feral? Like a boy raised by wolves? I suppose that makes this a safari. Hey, you're scaring me, Ozaki. I was joking. Go easy, okay? And don't worry, I got the feeling from talking to him that he's a nice kid. He's almost like, I don't know, a cute little animal that doesn't speak human. That's one way to describe him. Your jokes and metaphors aren't helping. As she gave her blunt reply, she tried to simulate in her mind what life without electricity would be like. But the thought of it took her sour mood from bad to worse. After all, it was a world she had never known. She could understand why the teachers had given up. She, too, wanted to give up and return to her warm bed, but her good-for-nothing pride was holding her hostage. Not only did the teachers believe she was up to the task, but she also believed she could do it. It wasn't that easy to go back on her word, no matter how bad things looked after the fact. She walked along the hallway, the rain pattering in the background. The meeting room was already in sight. With a furrowed brow, she fixed her long hair in anticipation of meeting the unknown stranger within. Her elegant strides were like those of a confident general going to battle. Aosaki? I believe in you and all, but I'll say it again. Be nice, okay? Can you at least try to smile? Jesus Christ. Ooh. I'm bad at faking smiles, but I'll do my best. Really? That's a relief. I mean, I really mean it. It's good to know that you're not good at everything. Mr. Yamashiro's shoulders slumped the second they reached the meeting room. As he put his hand to the door, his eyes seemed to say to her, "Be nice, please." This only made her more irritated. I already know I'm not the friendliest looking person in the world, but I can't just make myself smile at the drop of a hat. You should have asked Tobimaru if that was what you were after. She sighed about her social shortcomings, but then it occurred to her that being called into school on a day off while sleep deprived wasn't anything to smile about anyways. She also thought that the person responsible for this mess would be better off attending elementary school. It might not be his fault, but either was it her duty or obligation to do the teacher's work for them. At the very least, could have used their brains and organized all this on a normal school day. Another complaint she wanted to voice later. I hate him already. He's my sworn enemy, and I haven't even met him. Sorry, but I couldn't care less about this extenuating circumstances. You think this isn't awkward for me too? Honestly, why did this have to happen when I'm so busy? Her pounding headache from a lack of sleep had boosted her aggression by 10%. No matter how harmless this guy on the other side of the door may be, anyone who disturbed her sleep was the enemy. And just as she was wreaking peak annoyance, Mr. Yamashiro opened the door to the meeting room. The room slowly slid into view. She didn't care for formalities, just looked straight ahead and stormed into the room. And found herself face to face with a most unusual opponent. Before we go on, let's see this from another perspective. Turning back the clock just a little bit. You don't have to do anything. For some, these words are a priceless luxury. For others, they are unbearable torture. For the proactive girl, it was definitely the former. Now, she'd be too suspicious of the motives of anyone giving her such a gift to accept it. For the passive boy, it was definitely the latter. A bitter thorn that made him homesick. Though at this very moment, his mind was still distracted with the wait for his face to reveal any discontent. He maintained perfect posture as he stared at the gray sky. He had already waited a whole hour, but figured they must have had their reasons for making him wait. And as long as he had the sound of the rain to soothe him, he could keep on waiting. It must be 9 o'clock already. Yeah, that seems about right. He had been vaguely keeping track of the time as he listened to the rain. Due to the holiday, the school building was completely silent, except for the patter of the rain on the window. The mood felt as damp as the air. It was then he heard heavy clatters of footsteps approaching. Finally, I thought, they've forgotten about me. He could hear 2 sets of footsteps, one heavier, that belonging to an adult. Give me a second. Oh, that hits the spot. Ooh. Ooh. Let me quick save. He breathed a sigh of relief as the door slid open. So sorry to keep you waiting. The first person he saw was a man wearing glasses and an awkward smile. That's Mr. Yamashiro, the one who brought me here. Hey, where's Mr. Satonaka? I told him to keep you company. He shouldn't have left you here. Mr. Yamashiro scratched his head, looking increasingly apologetic. And then from behind him, the most beautiful Aosaki Aoko, with a tight-lipped expression that made it clear she didn't want to be there. A dark-haired girl with a determined look in her eyes appeared. This is Sojiro. Sojiro gulped. The sound of the rain wind on the window faded into nothingness. That's when he knew. This was how it felt when time stood still. Me too, buddy. I would also be breathless. But just before I keep reading, I love her design and her like hair horns or whatever you call them, little pockets under her hair. That is like literally old character design that you just don't see anymore. I love everything about Aoko. It's fantastic. I cannot wait for her to show up on the FGO so I can summon for her. She blinked quickly a few times as if taken aback. Why was anyone's guess? The boy was everything she expected a naive country boy to look like. However, she felt something she couldn't understand. His eyes widened slightly, as if taken aback. The reason was obvious. Putting his feelings into words was a different matter altogether. So we will never know exactly what he experienced in that moment. Well, she's gorgeous, that's why. Yeah, that's when it hit him. He sensed that he had been touched by the hands of destiny. Allow me to introduce you to the two of you. This is the transfer student I mentioned, Sojiro Shizuki. And this is the girl that will be showing you around. She's our student council president and came in on her day off just to welcome you. Her name is Aoko Aozaki. His voice and the sound of the rain seemed distant. This is how they first met. Such was their start, for better or worse, like the ephemeral beauty of fireworks. It was commonly believed among the students that Aoko was always in a foul mood. But this gossip was 90% prejudice, as Aoko simply didn't have the time to be irritated 24/7. The reality was, she simply didn't want to explain herself all the time. And therefore, she seemed angry about something, obvious or not. The idle gossip did, however, lead to her earning the title of one D school's 7 deadly threats. Remaining 10% of the gossip was right on the mark. Aoko herself often had the feeling that her tendencies of animosity towards harmless things was akin to what a chronic headache sufferer might experience. Today fell under that 10%. For today, her anger was pure, and her childless and selfless display was befitting of her actual age. The meeting room was dimly lit, awash in the colors of the rain. To reduce electricity costs, school regulations forbid the use of lights during the day. This was setting the three of them. This was the setting the three of them found themselves in. Her first impression was that his calm demeanor reminded her of a field of wildflowers. In spite of his perfect posture, his overall air felt placid, tame even. And though describing him as meek would be going too far, at the very least, he was passive. Even though his uniform, she could see that was thinner than average. His dark hair was unkempt, and he came across as wholly forgettable boy. If she had looked at him more positive, if she had looked at him in a more positive light, she would describe him as a more young man than a boy. It was his calm demeanor that made him seem more mature. Was that the cause of Aoko's reasonless reaction? He seemed almost too at home in the meeting room, and she was left with the impression that it was her and the teacher, not this outsider, who were the guests here. She felt an unidentifiable aggravation building within her, almost as if her right to be here was in question. Aoko felt herself raising her natural defenses. What's with me? Am I really this angry for no reason? She hated not understanding things, her own emotions in particular. It pained her less than you would imagine for a perfectionist like her, but it still nagged her like a thorn in her side. Aozaki, why don't you introduce yourself? Miss Yamashiro attempted to relieve the tension, was equally irritating. Introduce myself, huh? After casting a nasty glance in the teacher's direction, Aoko turned to face the boy. From an outsider's perspective, it might have looked like a stare down. And in that instance, the culmination of her emotional state hurtled towards the innocent boy and skewered him. Again, sorry for the wait, Shizuki. Hearing his name, Sojiro came to his senses. His stunned gaze shook loose. He took a deep breath to clear his head. Chalking it up to nerves, Mr. Yamashiro broke a simple smile and turned to the girl standing beside him. I'll do the introductions then. This is the transfer student, Sojiro Suzuki. And this is our student council president who came on her day off just to show you around. Her name is Aoko Aozaki. Having been introduced by Mr. Yamashiro, the girl took a step forward. Her eyes were merciless, her stare an unspoken threat to violently trample her opponent. Sojiro, on the other hand, managed to keep his own composure, despite the shock at how confrontational she appeared. He had never been greeted quite like this before, but supposed mistakenly that this was how people treated each other in the city. I'm gonna grab a little drink. Hold on. Woo! Jesus Christ, that's good. Woo! The exchange must have looked quite dramatic to an onlooker. A girl ready to brawl. An earnest country boy, desperate to understand. It was a murderous limbo, especially for anyone in the room with them. And like Mr. Yamashiro, for example, well, he had thought he had made the right decision in choosing an honor student to help him out. She was in an inexplicably bad mood. Her tension in the air was undeniable. It was in this moment he had realized his failure. His realization had come far too late. One false move, and this girl, for whom no problem was too large, would become a storm that would rock the very foundation of the school. Just as the almighty Joker card could bring them either fortune or disaster, the sole teacher who had been present at the time would come to bear the blame for the scandal that ensued. Wow, you two seem to have really hit it off. I suppose I can leave you two to it then. Mr. Yamashiro laughed nervously as he crept towards the door. I'll be in the faculty room. Stop by when you're finished. You'll be alright, won't you, Aozaki? You're the student council president. Don't let me down. Mr. Yamashiro left, leaving the two in a locked-eyed state, one in which one set of eyes was doing all the glaring. All that remained in the room was an artless boy and a crossed-armed guarded girl. The two lingered in silence. They resembled the shogi players agonizing over their first moves, though it was only Aoko who was reading so much into their situation. He decided to put her irritation aside for the time being. With no reason to feel revulsion for him in the first place, he sighed deeply and faced Sojiro. Whatever. It's not like this is the first time that Mr. Yamashiro landed me in it. So, what's your name again? Her tone was nothing if not reproachful, though she had done nothing to offend her. But the boy failed to pick up on it. Incapable of such venom himself, I am Sojiro Shizuki, he replied, and you're Miss Aosaki, right? For whatever reason, he came across as happy in his response. Drop the miss. That's not my style. Is Shizuki fine? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do I mean? Hello? Did I say something weird? Yeah, very. The boy replied immediately, as if it was a natural response, but quickly second-guessed himself. Oh, never mind. That must be normal here. You can call me Shizuki. You mind if I call you Aozaki? Suit yourself. She followed her blunt reply with a swift turn away from him. While she was hardly thrilled at the prospect of that task at hand, it had been entrusted to her, and it was her personal policy to see it through to the end. Oh, sorry, but I'm not in the mood for pleasantries. Time is short, so let's get this over with. Sure, I know your time is valuable. Aoko's blunt rancor was lost on me once again. Humans tend to be very overly conscious about being ignored, whatever form that takes. But despite being peeved at landing none of her attacks, Aoko did her best to act professional and direct her guests into the hallway. There was no sunlight in the hallway, nor any sign of life. This was more like a prison than the cave that was the meeting room. As it dawned on Aoko that always matched her mood, she sighed once again. First things first. Did you understand everything Mr. Yamashiro explained to you? Yes, I get how the school works. But it's still a bit hard to imagine that everyone here is around the same age. I see. Great. Aoko rubbed her forehead. This Sojiro kid had no idea what he was in for. Apparently, all he had heard about school was that it was a place where a lot of people met to study. High school teachers imparted to the students their knowledge in various fields of studies, while fostering discipline and creativity. But never did Aoko imagine that she would have to explain the concept of school itself to someone. Yes, fundamentals were important, but this was absurd. She had seriously doubted whether he could even handle classes, but Mr. Yamashiro insisted that things would work out somehow. Ah. Shoujo had managed to pass the transfer exam, after all, barely. Not my problem, Aoko grumbled mentally as she walked down the hallway. She consoled herself with the fact that today would be the only day she'd spend with this boy out of time, or at least she'd try to keep it that way. Alzaki? He asked, calmly trying to get her attention. What? Can I ask you something? Yes, what is it? Could I be wrong about this, but you seem upset about something. You're not a morning person, are you? His gaze revealed earnest concern, as if asking her if she'd remembered to eat breakfast. It was like another hammer to her head. It was true that Aoko had been glaring at Sojiro this entire time. Glaring red-hot daggers, in fact. Not just at him, but the universe. Even on her best days, her roommate used to remark, "Most people can't handle your skull, Aoko. It wouldn't hurt you to be a little more tolerant." She had been warned that her emotions were so naked on her face that people treated her like a powder keg. How naive could the boy be that he could not pick up on this himself? I had a little bit there. He's not making fun of me, is he? No, he couldn't be. Even though she found her attempt to reassure herself unconvincing, it began to dawn on Aoko, far too late, that compared to her, this laid-back transfer student might as well have been from another planet. Look, let me spell this out for you because you're just not getting it. It's not your imagination. I am angry. Anyone could see that in my eyes. It's easier than trying to make conversation. In response to her words, the Martian clapped his hands together. That makes sense. I don't know why you want to do that anyway. I don't know why you want to do it that way, but I get that's faster than wanting to express yourself. Sojiro accepted her reasoning without argument, though he still had no idea what kinds of emotions she was trying to express. It was as if he could hear the words but couldn't grasp the meaning. Ideas that should have connected were instead separated into blocks. So it's true. He really is peculiar. Mr. Yamashiro's word made sense to her now. What was odd about this boy went way beyond naivete. A stranger in a strange land he may be, but it was only civilized to forgive him. Some jet lag include confusion. Let's visit your classroom. She had regained her composure. Sojiro raised his hand and stopped his tracks. Just one more thing. Aoko waited for Sojiro to continue, the boy's patience to a fault. She rubbed her forehead with her hand again, nursing a vague feeling of uneasiness. I wanted to ask, why are you so angry? Is it your line of business, or does it run in your family? Oh, my boy Sojiro, you just don't ask this sort of questions, man. A long silence, though she knew it wouldn't change the situation. She remembered her regret at answering the phone that morning. He meant no harm. She responded this, though, like a mantra in an attempt to keep their impulses in check. It's not you, if that's what you're worried about. I'm just trying not to think about how much better my day would have gone if I'd slept until noon. With that vague answer, she started to walk again, and turned her gaze away from this rude stranger named Sojiro Suzuki. Shizuki. Shizuki. Is it she or she? Doesn't matter. Well, that constitutes a normal and certain up for debate. Most would undoubtedly refer to him as so. He was a simple, nice boy with nondescript features. If he were an ice cream flavor, he would be vanilla. And Sojiro found Aoko to be very businesslike and full of life. There was a certain purpose to her movements as they began and ended in an orderly fashion. The way her fingers raised when she pointed at things, the way she made her way across the hallways and classrooms, the way she would occasionally glance back at him to make sure he was keeping place. Each and every moment was so impressive that he couldn't take his eyes off her. I wouldn't be able to either. Aoko is generally one of my favorite characters in the Nasuverse. That with also Arkue. You know, most the female protagonists of the Nasuverse are honestly really fascinating. But I digress. Let's go back to the story. Aoko showed him to his homeroom class C of the 11th grade. The room certainly displayed more of a human touch than the previous meeting room, but Sojiro was none the wiser as to its function. Aoko gave a brief explanation before they visited individual subject classrooms, as well as the gym, cafeteria, locker room, and school infirmary. Sojiro asked so many questions that much time passed before they reached the AV room on the second floor. Oh dear. Sojiro stopped looking genuinely concerned. It's 20 to 1 already. Huh? You're kidding, right? The school isn't that big. We'll be done soon. The tour had begun around 10, which meant 3 hours had passed. A tour of the school wouldn't take anywhere near this long. If you didn't ask so many questions, we'd be done by now. It's a miracle it's still light out. Aoko glared at Sojiro. He was being sarcastic, of course, knowing full well he would never pick up on it. Is he? To her surprise, he looked down apologetically, unable to hide his dejection. Oops, I think I broke him. The guy before her now was nothing like earlier, in contrast to seeing his once impenetrable veneer when they first met. He found herself feeling sympathetic. Momentarily, at least, until their irritation returned in full force. What's the hurry? Don't tell me your brain's not big enough to remember all this stuff. Oh, there's that, but it's more about almost being 1 o'clock. Sojiro's gaze wandered, as if worried about something. If he was worried about the weather, he would have a hard time seeing it as there were no windows in this hallway. Don't tell me you've got somewhere better to be. That's perfect. I take time out of my day for you, and you don't have the decency to even hang around. You're a real piece of work, you know that. Thanks, I guess. That's nice of you to say. Not a compliment. She yelled at him, unable to hold back her fury. Well? Well, what? What's happening in 20 minutes? Sojiro's face lit up as he finally understood what he was talking about. Him. It's a secret. He said with a perfectly straight face. Ugh! Every time I think I've got this guy figured out, he finds a way to trip me up. Her frustration was natural. Still, she did everything she could to stifle her feelings and fake a smile. You wanna repeat that, Shizuki? She took a step forward. Like I said, it's a secret. Feeling the mood change drastically, Sojiro took a step back. And another. And another. No matter how many steps he took back, she kept edging towards him. She was smiling, but the thought he could see the blood boiling beneath her skin. Last question. Do you enjoy mocking me? He had no intention of mocking her, though at this point he doubted presenting any evidence to prove this would do much to erase that forced smile on her face. Let me explain. His arms raised in surrender. She halted her advance and freed her face from that unseemly smile. The truth is that my part-time job shift starts at 1, but students are allowed to have jobs, right? Yeah. Wait, were you being tight-lipped because you thought you'd get in trouble? All you have to do is get permission, dweeb. I know, and I did. I got permission when they accepted me to school. Really? Olga's face lit up and she realized she might not be the piece of work she thought him to be. Yeah, I only got permission for one of my jobs. Wait, you have more than one job? Oh, I quit 2 of them. Living expenses are bad enough, but now that I have to earn money for school as well, don't you think it's unreasonable for them only let me work 1 job? No? I think you're the one who's being unreasonable. Though, still irritated, her opinion of him changed a little. She was impressed that he was able to take care of his tuition and living expenses all on his own. She could also empathize with having no time to oneself. Her anger began to subside. The words part-time job were about the last things she ever expected to hear out of this country's boy's mouth. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. That's fine, you can go. I get it. Will you be okay? She had no idea what this question meant, but she at least understood that he's trying to be considerate, which also took her by surprise. She figured she figured he'd be just as dense about people's feelings as he was about everything else. I'll be fine. I'll just head home. First, though, she thought it best that the boy stopped by the faculty room. Mr. Yamashiro had mentioned that the transfer procedures had already been completed, so all that remained was for him to sign off of her duties. I finished showing him around. Good job. That goes for you too, Suzuki. What do you think of our school? Thank you for our tour. It's like a real school. That's great to hear. Okay then. Best of luck starting tomorrow. She had no interest whatsoever in this pointless wrap-up meeting. I have to forgive Mr. Yamashiro. He likes the faculty room so much he chooses to kick back there while getting his students to do dirty work for him. I bet he spends hours in there. Actually, that's pretty smart of him. Okay, Aozaki. If you're fine with it, then so am I. Huh? There it was again. Whatever Sojiro was getting at, Aoko had no idea. I'm gonna get going. Thanks again for today. Yes, today only. You shoot him away with her hand. His face bent into a broad smile as he found the gestures endearing. It was a softer expression that she had grown accustomed to seeing out of him. It was the kind of smile that would make anyone smile back. Well, most people at least. Aoko Ozaki didn't betray the slightest hint of a smile. See you later. Huh? And with that friendly farewell, Sojiro walked towards the end of the hallway. Or so she thought before he turned into the next class over. Did he just? Sojiro headed straight for one of the classroom windows, whereupon he opened it with ease. The chilly November air filled the room. The soft sounds of the rain doubled in volume. In that instance, she realized that the intentions with opening the window. She really wished she hadn't. No! Stop! She already had one leg out the window when she dashed to stop them. What do you think you're doing? What am I doing? I'm leaving for my job, that's what. You do know what this window, that this window isn't an exit, don't you? I mean, do you even know what your floor you're on? She saw the light, understanding the dawn in his eyes. Oh my god, I almost died. Who put an exit here? This is dangerous. It's the lack of something between your ears that's dangerous. The insult went right over his head. People here don't normally enter and exit through windows, okay? You should probably remember this information for future reference. Oh, I know. I just wanted to save some time. But thanks. I'll be more careful from now on. He pulled his leg back inside and closed the window. His school uniform was soaking wet from the rain. Hey, be my guest. Go outside any way you like. Just don't do it in front of me from now on. Anyway, you start school tomorrow, right? Yeah, I'm a little nervous though, which is why I came early for the tour. He bid her farewell before running away down the hallway. She hoped he would walk down the stairs and leave through a school entrance like a normal person. Ah, I wonder if he's really gonna be okay here. The image of him disappearing into the distance popped into her head in spite of her ire. She had no intentions of spending more time with him, and yet she felt strangely anxious. She couldn't tell if the feeling was fueled by concern or irritation. Why had she even gotten angry with this insignificant transfer student in the first place? A strange day with a strange transfer student resulting in strange emotions. Her head tilted as she reflected on what should have been a more enjoyable day and the irritating experience she had just had. Whatever. It's not as if I will see him again. Oh, sister, you definitely will. The sound of the rain echoed quietly all around her. The gray sky seemed frozen in time. It was impossible to discern whether or not it was morning or evening. Mr. Yamashiro and Aoko were likely the only ones left at school. The unlit classroom looked overly gloomy and ominous as Aoko stood in it alone. She pulled up at her sleeve. Her dainty, unremarkable watch showed that it was almost 1 o'clock. He was right about the time. She looked out the window, the grounds below. She saw a boy in uniform running through the rain without an umbrella, a sight she must have seen before, but for whatever reason, affected her far more than she wished. Aoki did not stop by the faculty room before heading home. While Mr. Yamashiro's offer to drive her home was tempting, he decided it would ultimately be far more satisfying to ruin his day, just as he had ruined hers. She walked as quietly as she could towards the entrance and opened her bright red umbrella. She had predicted that the rain was waning in the afternoon. At this rate, it would probably cease completely in an hour or so. The distant sunshine would likely have reached her by the time she had arrived home. Well, I suppose it could be worse. She shrugged her shoulders in resignation. She neither liked nor disliked the rain, but she found herself enjoying her walk home with her red umbrella in hand. The teachers at Misaki High School weren't fond of bright colors, so Aoko's red umbrella was an unnatural sight. A ghost story about how the umbrella was once pure white had been making the rounds, but it featured Aoko instead of a ghost. It was with that umbrella she made her way towards Misaki Station. Misaki Private High School took its namesake for the town it was in. The area was once a sprawl of farmland and woodland, but rapid growth over the last 10 years had led to the unprecedented unmodernization. There was some who fought for to preserve Misaki's natural treasures. I agree in principle to preserving the land, but not at the expense of our prosperity. With those words, the mayor snuffed out the voices of the minority and and ushered a long-term plan for new urban development. More than enough funds for the urban development were collected, and the unassuming town of Misaki became the largest municipality of Misaki City in merely 10 years, even though it lacked the modernity of neighboring Yashirogi or the elegance of Misaki Hills. What did people expect? To keep the town hidden atop the mountain forever? It's not like they were gonna flatten the mountain or something. Urbanization had been contained to the lowlands around the station, with most of the hills and mountains still standing as they did 10 years prior. The exhaustion of funds succeeded in protecting the old Misaki where the citizens could not. It became a truly odd suburban town, welcoming an increasingly urban population with its vestiges of old country charm. Misaki High School was a private school established long before the town's current state. The original campus, built 50 years ago, was located high up in the mountains, making its current location its second incarnation. The path to the old grounds was not only steep and remote, it had become overgrown game trail with the passage of time. For these reasons, among others, Misaki High School had been shuttered until almost 20 years ago, when it received a donation from a department store chain that allowed the construction of a new campus in the city. Thus, Misaki High School reopened its doors, old woodlands camp and forgotten. In fact, most of the students attending Misaki High School were not from Misaki at all. The hardy, rustic people of this country town preferred prefectural schools to private ones. Truth be told, Aoka herself was one of them. All she had wanted after junior high was to move to Tokyo, where she had hoped to spend her days touring her favorite bands on her way to entering a public university. But her hopes were dashed with her sister's departure. So here she was walking alone in the town with only a red umbrella to keep her company on what should have been a day off. Looking back on it now, it's like my whole life had been on it, one disaster after another. Her frustrations evaporated into cold December air. Oh well, at least it's not boring. With those words, her mood brightened a bit as she left the school in her wake. The busier part of town met her at the bottom of the gentle sloping road. This is probably a good time to end. I want to continue, I genuinely do, but unfortunately, we have gone past the allotted time of an hour, and we are currently at 8 hours and 30 minutes. Way more than I was expecting to go at. So, we will be ending this episode right here. But thank you for tuning in, whether it be on stream or after stream is over. I genuinely do appreciate it. This is Golden Arcadia signing out. I don't know how often I'll be doing this, but I'll try to do it in between streams for FGO. You know, reading light novels is definitely something I do like doing. I've just never done it before because I have no idea what the procedure is on YouTube, because technically if you watch my stream, you're to some degree also experiencing the story and as such not buying the game for yourself. So that's definitely something I don't particularly, what's the word, push. MAHOYO is a fantastic novel, and I definitely recommend you guys buy it and play it for your own. But I digress. Either way, this is Golden Arcadia signing out, and yeah, people. Hopefully I can stream this again soon.